Do you feel the pressure of not making mistakes?
Sure. I mean, I try and get things right to the best of my ability. I check with experts. It's kind of interesting when people really don't like something that was said in a podcast. A lot of times I chuckle because at Stanford we have some amazing scientists, but I talk to people elsewhere. And it's always interesting to me how, I'll get divergent information and then I'll find the overlap in the Venn diagram. And I have this question, do I just stay with the overlap in the Venn diagram? Like I did an episode on oral health. I didn't know this until I researched that episode, but oral health is critically related to heart health and brain health. That there's a bacteria that causes cavities, streptococcus, that can make its way into other parts of the body through the mouth that can cause serious issues. There's the idea that some forms of dementia, some forms of heart disease start in the mouth, basically. I talked to no fewer than 4 dental experts, and there was a lot of convergence. I also learned that teeth can demineralize. That's the formation of cavities. They can also remineralize. As long as a cavity isn't too deep, it can actually fill itself back in, especially if you provide the right substrates for it. That saliva is this incredible fluid that has all this capacity to remineralize teeth, provided the milieu is right. Things like alcohol-based mouthwashes, killing off some of the critical things you need. It's fascinating. And I put out that episode thinking, oh, well, I'm not a dentist. I'm not an oral health episode, but I talked to a pediatric dentist. There's a terrific one, Dr. Downscore Stacy, Staci, on Instagram, does great content. Talked to some others. And then I just waited for the attack. I was like, here we go. And it didn't come. And dentists were thanking me. I was like, whoa, that's a rare thing. More often than not, if I do an episode about, say, psilocybin or MDMA, you get some people liking it, or ADHD and the drugs for ADHD. We did a whole episode on the Ritalin, Vyvanse, Adderall stuff. You get people saying, thank you. I prescribed this to my kid and it really helps. But they're private about the fact that they do it because they get so much attack from other people. So I like to find the center of mass, report that, try and make it as clear as possible. And then I know that there's some stuff where I'm going to catch shit. What's frustrating for me is when I see claims that I'm against fluoridization of water, which I'm not, right? Like we talked about the benefits of fluoride. It builds hyper strong bonds within the teeth. I went and looked at some of the literally the crystal structure, not the crystal structure, but the essentially the micron and submicron structure of teeth is incredible, and where fluoride can get in there and form these super strong bonds. And you can also form them with things like hydroxyapatite. And why is there fluoride in water? Well, it's the best. Okay, you say some things that are interesting, but then somehow it gets turned into you're against fluoridization, which I'm not. Or I've been accused of being against sunscreen. I wear mineral-based sunscreen on my face. I don't want to get skin cancer. Or I use a physical barrier. There is a cohort of people out there that think that all sunscreens are bad. I'm not one of them. I'm not what's called a sunscreen truther. But then you get attacked for so we're talking about there are certain sunscreens that are problematic. And Rhonda Patrick's now starting to get vocal about this. And so there's certain topics it's interesting for which you have to listen carefully to what somebody is saying, but there's a lumping as opposed to splitting of what health educators say. And so it just seems like with politics, there's this urgency to just put people into a camp of expert versus renegade or something. And it's not like that. It's just not like that. So the short answer is I really strive to get things right. But I know that I'm going to piss certain people off. And you've taught me, and Joe's taught me, and other podcasters have taught me that if you worry too much about it, then you aren't going to get the newest information out there. Like peptides, there's very little human data unless you're talking about Vyleesi or the melana, stuff in the alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone stuff, which are prescribed for female libido, to enhance female libido, or sermorelin, which is for certain growth hormone deficiencies. With rare exception, there's very little human data. But people are still super interested, and a lot of people are taking and doing these things. So you want to get the information out.
Do you try to not just look at the science, but research what the communities are talking, what the various communities are talking about. Like maybe research what the conspiracy theorists are talking about, just so you know all the armies that are going to be attacking your castle.
Yes. So like, for instance, there's a community of people online that believe that like, if you consume seed oils or something, that like you're setting up your skin for sunburn. And if you don't, like there's all these like theories, but I like to know what the theories are. I like to know what the extremes are, but I also like to know what the standard conversation is. But there's generally more agreement than disagreement. I think where, I've been kind of bullish actually is, or like supplements, like people go, oh, supplements. Well, there's food supplements like a protein powder, which is different than a vitamin. And then they are compounds. There are compounds that have real benefit, but people get very nervous about the fact that they're not regulated. Mm-hmm. But some of them are vetted for potency and for safety with more rigor than others, and it's interesting to see how people who take care of themselves and put a lot of work into that are often attacked. That's been interesting. Also, one of the most controversial topics nowadays is Ozempic, Mounjaro. Mm-hmm. I'm very middle of the road on this. I don't understand why the quote unquote health wellness community is so against these things. I also don't understand why they have to be looked at as the only route. For some people, they've really helped them lose weight. And yes, there can be some muscle loss and other lean body loss, but that can be offset with resistance training. They've helped a lot of people. And other people are like, no, this stuff is terrible. I think the most interesting thing about Ozempic, Mounjaro is that they are GLP-1. They're in the GLP-1 pathway, glucagon-like peptide 1. And it was discovered in Gila monsters, which is a lizard, basically. And now the entomologist will dive on me. It's a big lizard-looking thing that doesn't eat very often. And they figured out that there's this peptide that allows it to curb its own appetite at the level of the brain and the gut. And it has a lot of sequence homology to what we now call GLP-1. Mm-hmm. So I love anytime there's animal biology links to cool human biology, links to a drug that's powerful that can help people with obesity and type 2 diabetes. And there's evidence that can even curb some addictions. Those are newer data. But I don't see it as either or. In fact, I've been a little bit disappointed at the way that the whatever you want to call it, health wellness biohacking community has like slammed on Ozempic, Mounjaro. It's like they're like, just get out and run and do. Listen, there are people who are carrying substantial amounts of weight that running could injure them. They get on these drugs and they can improve, and then hopefully they're also doing resistance training and eating better, and then you're bringing all the elements together.
Well, why do you think the criticism is happening? Is it that Ozempic became super popular, so people are misusing it, or that kind of thing?
No, I think what it is that people think if it's a pharmaceutical, it's bad.
Yeah.
And then, or if it's a supplement, it's bad, depending on which camp they're in. And wouldn't it be wonderful to kind of like fill in the gap between this divide? What I would like to see in politics and in health is neither right nor left, but what we can just call a league of reasonable people that looks at things on an issue by issue basis and fills in the center. Because I think most people are I don't want to say center in a political way, but I think most people are reasonable. They want to be reasonable, but that's not what sells clicks. That's not what drives interest. But I'm a very like I look at issue by issue, person by person. I don't like in-group, out-group stuff. I never have. I've got friends from all walks of life. I said this on other podcasts, and it always sounds like a political statement, but like the push towards like, polarization it's so frustrating. If there's one thing that's discouraging to me as I get older each year, I'm like, wow, are we ever going to get out of this like polarization?